Run for Your Life, usually seen at this time, will not be presented tonight, so that we may bring you the following special program.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
His paintings redefined comic book heroes. His vision inspired a generation. The Legend of Kingdom Come is the definitive documentary on Alex Ross, known as the Norman Rockwell of comics.
It almost looked like Renaissance paintings, except for superheroes.
He makes them look like Olympian gods.
We go behind the scenes of his definitive graphic novel, Kingdom Come, now on Blu-ray, packed with exclusive interviews and unseen artwork. Order today at legendofkingdomcome.com.
If you're here at Word Balloon, it's because you like comics, creators, conversation, pop culture subjects. Would you consider joining the League of Word Balloon Listeners? Patreon.com/wordballoon. For just $3 a month or more, you'll get exclusive access to the Word Balloon e-magazine, featuring transcriptions of some of my best conversations. When you subscribe, you'll also be part of the Word Balloon Book Club, where Brian Michael Bendis and I will pick a comic every month to review and discuss live with the League on this show. Join the League today, patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you always for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. All right, there we go.
Book club. I meant to write a theme song. I didn't do it. I meant to. We're here doing book club again. Thanks everyone for coming live. Thanks for everyone who listens post. We get a lot of comments from people who listen to this after the fact. It's very nice to hear. I like to be there for people while they're doing their laundry. It's awesome. I always want to preface kind of weird. I sometimes like forget, like I have been in this business for a while, and so I kind of like preamble like what my relationship to the published work is. I am a fan. I have met Darwyn in the past when he was with us, but I never had a conversation with him. I was not friends with him, even though we shared friends. He obviously was very good friends with Ed. I never met the guy. My claim to fame with Darwyn is I was there the night he socked an editor at the Long Island Convention bar. I was very confused about it at the time, but I was happy I was there. My relationship has always been an admiration of Darwyn. Always for all the projects, it looks like reading his obituary, which I posted on the Discord, which I highly recommend. It was a very good, well-written look at his career, which was unusual in some aspects. That I realized that we broke in around the same time, even though he was leaving a whole other career to start his comics career, which is always fascinating because so many people start in comics and move into animation. Very few actually get their hooks in on animation and move over to comics. It has been done, of course, but it's rare that someone of such a strong voice, I guess, would make that choice or feel the calling so hard that they would abandon their thing. I'm going to share with you some imagery because I really the one thing I took from that's not it. What am I showing here? Can you see Darwyn? Well, hold on. What are we looking at here?
New Frontier.
Yeah, New Frontier.
Okay. Why can't I see it? That's so weird. Hold on, I'll find it. There we go. Okay. So in reading the obituary, and what I thought was an excellent way to open up this conversation was a lot of people who were reading the book. We're talking about Darwyn Cooke's adaptation of Richard Stark's Parker novel, The Hunter, which is a mouthful, but that's what it is. And there's no other way to describe it. But I was surprised, as some people were surprised by the tone of it, that it was, a bit rough around the edges and, the novel of its time that it was adapting. And then I, right after seeing some of the commentary, I read the obituary where the writer, whose name I'm sorry, I'm blanking on, but I did post the obituary and you should look at it, made the observation, and maybe others have made it before, that Darwyn's superhero work of which he's most known for still, which would be highlighted the most, I guess, with not only the Black Cat book that he did with Ed and by himself, and with Batman, but obviously, mostly we're talking about how people perceive the New Frontier. And so most of the work that people know him for, even this angry Batman versus Batman and the Spirit thing, there's a joyfulness to it. There's a happiness, like a proud. Where's that one I had? Like all of them have yeah, here, like there's a statuesque pride to the characters, and that's what when most people think of Darwyn to this day, I think they think of images like this. So when you're reading the Parker novels, that is not what this is. Like it is almost the opposite. It is dark and gritty, obviously, but it is shadow laden, and obviously the lead character is has got some social issues, and it is not like you would never like. This is the heroic image of Parker versus how we perceive the images of Darwyn from mainstream comics. So I thought the dichotomy was interesting, and I wondered if it fed into our relationship to how he's drawing this darker material. Does it get darker because it's using that language? Does it like distort that language, or does it make it I don't want easier to take in, but does it make it more palpable because it's cartoony and kind of like the same shapes as New Frontier? I don't have an answer for it. I just was fascinated by that, and I was saw it last week, and I've been thinking a lot about other creators who have bounced around to different kinds of subject matter and different kinds of projects like this, and I couldn't find another name that I think has done just this. There's been artists and writers who have gone into different genres, but like when Jack Kirby draws crime books, it still looks like Jack Kirby. You know what I mean? There's an energy is the same. Whereas I'd be curious if anyone can think of an artist or writer or an artist writer who did both things like this and was known equally for both, and they're both so emotionally different, I guess is the word. And with that, Ethan, I think you may be answering the question. Hi, Ethan, what you got?
Hey, well, I don't know if I can speak to other artists, but I think one of the things about especially those images you were just showing is that his style is almost perfectly reminiscent of the era that he's portraying in Parker. Like it looks like ad copy from the 50s. Like whether or
Absolutely.
not it's dark or whether or not it's light, it looks like he was generated out of that era. And so um while other people might have opinions on how artists interact with that genre, like he was made for it. Like I think he was made for Parker more than he was made for even some of the other stuff that he did. Because even when he did Catwoman and Batman, he looks like he's doing that late 40s, early 50s Catwoman. I just watched the first episode of Mad Men last night. I've never seen it before. And it looks like he should be doing pinup art for the show. And so, that was when you said,
Oh, the
you know,
only name I could think of, and this kind of adds to what you're saying, was Alex Toth, who comes from all of those worlds as well, and obviously is a huge influence on Darwin, just from a rendering point of view, and said so in interviews. But like, so a lot of us are like standing on shoulders of other people who are like, oh, like I bet Alex Toth would do this if he could do it. Like that kind, you make like
yeah,
career choices
yeah.
based on what you're
And it looks
imagining
like,
they did, you know?
and it's kind of like Kirby with the space stuff, right? With the Kirby dots and the thing, like Kirby, like that is the quintessential. Even if he's doing crime, he still looks like he's doing New Gods. Even when Darwin is doing Catwoman, he kind of looks like Parker was that perfect distillation of his natural style. It's
Yeah.
like finding the perfect actor for a role. You just can't see them anywhere else
Well,
after
there's.
that. You just see them. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Anthony. I didn't mean to step on you.
No,
Finish your thought.
no, that's it. That completes my thought.
Well, I was all I was going to say is there's a synergy between the way Darwin does Parker and then also his Slam Bradley, and obviously we saw that in his and Ed's Catwoman, as distinct as it was. Obviously Parker a bit darker than Slam, but yeah, I mean, and also you'll forgive me, Ethan. I'll slightly say that it really is as the book opens up and tells us it's 1962. That's 2 years after or before I was born, and I certainly had my parents' photographs of that era. And man, I got to tell you, some of the locations, especially some of the bar and grills that you see in the book, it looks like my dad's place. My dad's place was built in 1950, and it's like that was the aesthetic that my dad was going for, and that was that smoky kind of lounge bar kind of atmosphere, and it just sucked me right in. Also, I'm sure we'll eventually talk about the film Point Blank. And Brian, have you seen? I think there's a new documentary about Point Blank.
I've
And
not seen a new documentary. I'd watch the hell out of that. No, I did not know it existed.
and if people in the chat haven't or listening or watching haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. After you read The Hunter.
I was going to watch the Mark Wahlberg Parker movie, and I couldn't do it.
Oh
I watched the
no.
trailer. I just
Well, that and Payback, the Mel Gibson. I mean, they're fine for what. Well, actually, I can't even judge Wahlberg's Parker or
no, I haven't seen Wahlberg's Parker. Just the reviews were abysmal, and watching the trailer was heartbreaking. So I
what,
just decided why do that? But
what's his
has
face
anyone
too.
seen that one, by the way? Because I love Shane Black.
Yannick's
No, no
nodding
one.
and
No,
saying, I
yeah.
think it was the best. A meh from Yannick.
And I remember I haven't seen Payback since it came out, but that's a really good director, and I remembered enjoying Choices.
Well,
I haven't seen the Mel Gibson in many, many years.
same with Jason Statham, who did a Parker, and they're
I
like,
almost watched that one.
yeah.
Yeah, that trailer is very funny.
And Payback is fine if you don't consider it to come from the same source, or it's different enough, and also it's very modern. It's of its moment. So I'll be a little kinder to Payback,
Okay.
but Point Blank, I mean, that was 67.
Yeah, no,
John
that's a great movie.
Borman, great director, and Lee Marvin was, if man, I'll tell you, and I can't. Gil Kane's his name is Savage. Clearly was cut from the teeth of both Point Blank and these Parker novels.
Hey, Matt, I'm sorry to do this. I always do this to you, Matt, but you opened this door. Is the director's cut of Payback more brutal than what was released at the time? Because I remember it having an edge to it, but clearly pulling its punches. If I
So,
remember correctly.
you it is now almost impossible to see the theatrical version, weirdly. It's like it's kind of been like erased. It's not available. So I had to kind of read more descriptions of how they changed it, but basically um Helgelin, the director, was fired
Hagelin, that's right. I'm
in the
sorry.
middle of production for wanting to make, a bleak adaptation, and Mel Gibson basically wanted it to be more of kind of a
Lethal
lethal
Weapon.
weapony, quippy kind of thing. And he was the star and also the producer, and he won out, and they replaced him. But then after the fact, uh, I guess DVDs were valuable enough that they thought there was some value in letting him like make his version. But then for some reason now that's the one that's available. So it's
You don't know why?
it's
Because that's
supposedly
fascinating.
darker and less kind of shticky.
Hmm. Okay, but you don't know why they got rid of the original? Because that's unusual. That is.
Yeah, that I'm not sure, because
Uh,
if you're going to get rid of one, you would probably get rid of the one, the director's cut is the one it's definitely darker. It has like it has a scene where Gibson, as he's not Parker, he's like
Porter.
Porter. Yeah, yeah. All the characters are like the real names, but changed slightly. Like they'll change two letters. I have no idea why. It's very strange. But
Borman in the commentary for the Point Blank DVD really shits on Payback and was just shitting on the theatrical release. And I'll be honest, I mean, I'm glad the better version survives. Because as I remember, Matt, it's been a while since I've seen the original, but I do remember seeing both, and always preferred the director's cut. It is better.
yes, the golden age of British directors doing director's commentary, not seemingly aware there's a microphone in front of their face. Anyway, if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up James Bond director's commentaries. They're all on YouTube, and
You
they
can
are
find him on YouTube, everybody, and especially a couple that really point out Terrence Young. I'll say it, Terrence Young, he's dead. Come
yeah,
after me,
they
Terrence.
are a hate crime. Anyway, so Zach Goya, I was excited to hear your thoughts on this. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. You?
Very good.
Good.
I said I
Yeah,
was calling you first, but it's close. Sorry.
yeah, no, hey, all good. No, so one of the things that I guess with comics and being superhero, very superhero eccentric over in America, like we're always kind of conditioned to kind of think of a protagonist as a hero. And this was one of the times where I really started like when I read this, it was making me think, well, no, it's not a hero. It's just the lead of a story that may not always have those heroic qualities. So I saw some comments about um, some of the misogyny and so on. And I'm like, you know what though? That he's a criminal. He's not a good guy, like so maybe that was what he was thinking. And I don't know if it's a reflection on the author per se, but that character I believed in what it was like, so but when I was reading through the Martini editions and looking at the back matter, one of the things that stuck with me was when Darwin said that when he started to empathize with or sympathize with Parker or start to like him, he got up and he walked away because he didn't want to have that kind of feeling with him because he didn't want that to influence his writing and how he portrayed the character. And I really think that reading the through line and reading all four of them that he really stuck to it. And yeah, Parker's not a good guy. He just
Yeah. Yeah.
tends to, and I think Brubaker said it during his criminal stuff too. Like, he's not a good guy. He just fucks over worse people. So they're the people that he's harming aren't good people either. So it's a little more forgivable. Um, but yeah, like, and then to talk about, he mentioned, let me find the movie. It was, he said that Parker had never really like
Who's
thought
he?
about how he
Who are we
looked.
talking about?
I'm sorry, Stark. That said he
Yes.
never really thought about how Parker looked. But he said that it was based off of Jack Palance and Panic in the Streets. Was kind of like his celebrity likeness to Parker. And Cooke kind of went with that too, and he demonstrates, like, he talks about the hands being really big and just kind of like the size of Parker, the attitude of him and everything. It just so in reading those and then reading some of the thoughts that went into it, and even like the name Parker, was they got the blessing from Stark to use, or Westlake to use the name Parker, which was not something I guess he did a lot of either. Going, which points to like Porter and Payback and so on. But I did kind of start. I saw Point Blank. I have not. I saw it on the list of movies. I haven't watched that one yet. I did watch The Outfit though after I read The Outfit, and that was
I've never
actually
seen that.
it was, Robert Duvall,
Duval.
and
See it
it's
in the
actually,
chat. But
yeah, I liked it. It was a good movie. And it does have a good tone, similar to the books. After I read The Hunter, I went back and I started reading the novels as well. That kind of prompted me into to doing that. But yeah, like I said, the part where Darwin stayed away from the character if he was starting to like him too much was the one thing that really stuck with me throughout.
it's a great
And
note, and you said a lot of things that I agree with, and it's again, not to excuse anything, but there were definitely a wave of literature and entertainment at the time that was brutal, and it always comes in waves. It's happened quite a few times in America. Let's just stick to American pop culture and American cinema, but like usually after war or a real time of strife, there's like this wave of like post-war crime. That's where film noir came from. Came from this, we're back from the war and we're all killers and we don't know how else to handle ourselves, and we have this anger or trauma now we know to be trauma that they don't know what to do with, so they write about it or they create characters that become an avatar for all these hateful feelings that they're having, and it's racist and misogynistic and all these things. But it does seem that it's equally hateful to all things at all times. Not to excuse or celebrate any one lane. It just seems to be coming out in every direction, including the people that he's aiming his hate at are also people you can easily hate. Like, right, they immediately say or do something terrible, right? So you're like in at least on some level of agreement with this hero or anti-hero or lead of the thing. Thinking about like the history of these kind of characters that go all the way from the film noirs all the way through in the 70s had a ton of characters like this that bled into another version of it during like to the more modern day during what would have been peak TV like Breaking Bad and Sopranos, where the lead of the character is a murder, like the lead of the show is a murderer. The Shield, the guy murders his partner in the pilot. Spoilers from 25 years ago. But these are all very much in the same vein as a Parker novel, which is this person is going to challenge you. Would you like to hang out with them and see where they take you? Or is there a weird part of this, of the human condition that you can live through? Like, you're not going to go out and murder someone, but watching this person do it, does that help you out, or or does that help you examine part of yourself in a way that takes it all down a notch? And of course, there's things that are done very well and artistically that have symbolism and real context, and some of it's just brutal and doesn't have much of a point or artistry to it, and it just seems like hatefulness for hatefulness, or an excuse to be hateful. So all of these generations of this kind of content have always had both things going on at the same time. There are outstanding film noirs that to this day feel like they're like speaking of today. And there's some similar movies and books of the time where nope, can't read them. And I laugh at like even like this constant struggle over the last 25 years to take the misogynist character James Bond and try to make him into a romantic hero. And what they did with the Daniel Craig movies was like in Casino Royale, it's almost comical. And I do love this movie, but like a lot of women get murdered because he doesn't give a shit about them or their and then instead they didn't change the scene. It's still a very brutal misogynistic scene from the way this character has been written his whole life. They just started playing romantic music over it. Like they pull the dead body out of the water, they play some John Barry swelling score over it, like that somehow we're supposed to, oh, he feels bad for a second. No, he doesn't. It's just you're trying to like to make the audience feel better about it so they can get on with it. So there's this language that's always there. Um yeah, it's and where it comes from is a base place, but it's been 100 years of this, so it's hard not to, not to want to at least look and examine it. But I was surprised. Show quite a few people on all our social media were like, "Whoa, these books are rough," and I don't know, maybe because I grew up in the 70s, like it does, like there's always been rough in
Yeah.
media to me. Kari, I hate to dump this on your lap, but
Wait, but forgive me,
yeah.
before Carrie starts, because I wanted to address Veronica's question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Where from a literary standpoint, from pulps to this period, this is really representative. The original source material. This is the paperback era that started maybe with Spillane and Mike Hammer and I, the Jury, and that is where we got a lot of misogyny and that post-war angst and everything, and that's the era and stuff. I don't know, and feel free anybody else if they had a different thought, but I suppose it is an evolution from pulp, but it really was, yeah, I guess it was in a lot of ways the next phase. You tell me, Brian. What
If
do you
you
think?
watch any documentary about like punk music or the punk movement or any kind of like anti-establishment movement in culture, this is included in it. This is like, human rage is part of the
Yeah,
human condition, and it comes out in the wash one way or another, right? Um, Again, I can't say enough times, not excusing anything that I've seen or read. There's a lot of stuff where I go, nope. It's like, no, no, thank you. And as a Jewish person, a lot of this hits and anti-Semitic bells get rung all the time that it's really heartbreaking. So we all get hit with this weird stick. I just before we move on to Kari, I did want to say that the crew Garcia posted the Tom Spurgeon interview, which I also highly recommend. I thank you for posting that. If you click on the link and read it later if you get a chance. All right, Kari. Again, I apologize to dump all of society's
Ills.
long generations of issues, but
It,
you don't have to hit any of this. But if you have,
no, I actually most of mine was piggybacking off of things that have already been mentioned, and I'd like to be a female bringing, talking about the misogynistic aspect of it. And I didn't because of the time that it's set in, and everything, like I write Lovecraftian horror. So, and you don't look up at H.P. Lovecraft and go like, wow, what a guy, so it's all good there. But a couple things off the bat. The book was beautiful. The slashing inks, like you said, like Toth style, and the palette of the jades. It kept the whole story feeling really cool. Basically, like Parker is so cold and aloof, and you get into that. But and then the other thing I wanted to go in, and this is just like the layout. I loved the way it looked, and I love lettering. I'm really big on hand lettering, and I love that he did that. It was beautiful. I love the fonts that he chose.
yep.
The only problem was that he did things like doing black lettering on top of the darker Ben Day dots. And it was
Yes,
just
oh, it
like, I
drives me
can't
nuts.
fucking read what he's saying. I'm zooming in to like see what it is. And I was like, come on, dude, you're doing so good with this whole book. And then I don't know what you said there. I gotta
Kari,
like,
thank you so much for saying this because I have some eye issues that go back. I have a keratoconus, so my relationship to light and color is a little different from others. And when I hit those, the lettering is so well chosen and so well designed. And then he hits that little button where it's like dark green on black. And you're like, oh man, my cones can't do it. Yeah. So thank
I,
you for
and
being
no,
here.
and I have the full spectrum. Like I've done those tests where it's like I see 99% of everything, and I'm just like, I can't fucking read this.
Okay, it's not
But
me. Thank you. I feel so much
no,
better.
no, it's not your cones. It's the it's the presentation. But I'm somebody who I'm reading the novel as well, and going through. And obviously, we aren't going to do things like there is no reason in the comic to include the story behind the Oakman Arms building and its current residency situation and all of that. But I think that the way that a lot of things are left out, like the first, 20 pages is pretty much almost all just visual. It's a silent comic. And if you're reading, you learn things like, oh, you can see that he's making this ID, but it's like, oh, he had to go here to get this driver's license. And then he had to go to this other place because they have a certain pen that uses the same color of ink as the stamp does. And you don't quite follow exactly, something's going on, but you don't know exactly. And again, you can't include all of it, or it would just be a book with pictures on the side. He did that version. But I think that when it comes to the misogynistic part, uh, in this comic, we don't see nearly as much of what Parker is about and how kind of bad of a guy he is as you do when you're reading the novel. Like they show Mal just beating up Pearl when she shows up, just because he's pissed. He doesn't like have she did nothing and he beats her up. So he's a capital B bad guy as we go through. And then we have just prior to that, when Lynn, Parker's wife, dies, all he does in the comic is he calls her stupid. In the book,
Oh,
he dresses her up and then he goes and drinks whiskey, watches TV, makes a sandwich, drinks some coffee, waits until night falls to dispose of her because he needs to stay in her apartment for 3 days. He just doesn't want her around. And in in the book, it discusses how he didn't want her to die. He was full of hatred. She is the only person, by the way, that he has any level of emotion for at all. He loves her and he hates her, but everybody else he feels a rage maybe towards for screwing him over, but that's business. She is the only person that he cares about. And he hauls her off, and it says in the book, He didn't want her to die, but he definitely wanted to beat her, mutilate her, and leave scars for what she did to him because she was held at gunpoint and threatened to die unless she turned on him. And she's the only person that pulls any emotion from him whatsoever. So I think that while there might be misogynistic themes in the book, it's not so much him. I think he's a terrible person. Like I do
I
not
don't
like
think
the
anyone's going to
man.
argue with you on this point.
Yeah, but like, but everything's called. But I don't think that he was a misogynist. He, at least, he just didn't give a shit about anybody but her, and she hurt him so bad that he just wanted to destroy her. I mean, I go for the anti-hero a lot, but I just couldn't.
Well,
I
it's
couldn't support him.
yeah. Can you empathize with what put them in this situation, right? That's always the
Yeah.
thing with an anti-hero. I grew up. I've read like every Jim Thompson novel, every Dashiell Hammett, like which has again a different voices with different takes
Mhm.
coming from a different place, but there is a Venn diagram here of like human brutality to each other in a space that everyone finds themselves in. Everyone's trying to one up each other, and Parker's the worst, so he wins. But what is the? I guess we're decades past it, but I wonder what the connection we why we look at a character that doesn't seem to have empathy. And I know that there are even characters on like reality shows that have that they don't cut people's face, but they you can see
Yeah.
oh you
Oh,
don't care about anybody, and so and we're watching you do that. That like what is that? What is why are we again? You don't have to answer this, Carrie. It's just a more of a
oh,
rhetorical. What brings us towards this? Why do we watch extreme behavior
well,
and consider ourselves?
can I compare it to something that's a totally different genre, but in the House of a Thousand Corpuses, Devil's Rejects, all of that kind of stuff, like you get to where you can feel a sympathy for like Otis and Baby and Captain Spaulding and stuff. They're fucking they're they're murderers and mutilators and all this stuff, but they have some passion behind it. He's just cold.
Yeah.
Everything he does is just there. She's the only person he ever gave a shit about, and he wants to cause her pain. And that's the only thing that is in her life that he does in his life is just he just wants to cause her pain and kill everybody else out of pride. So it was kind of like, yeah, I love the anti-hero even when they're really fucked up.
I do
But
too.
him, I love the book. I love the story. I love how everything goes. And somebody earlier had said, mentioned in the chat that they were looking for kind of a John Wick. And it's like, yeah, that's what I thought that I was going to have going into this. And it's like, nope, not at all. So yeah, I'm gonna forgive the misogynism is just kind of a thing that other characters do. I don't think Parker himself was a misogynist. Um, but I just think he was a bad person, and, and that's what I got out of it. So
No, no,
there's the
I
first,
appreciate your point of view directly. I agree with just about every word you said. I just there there is it does seem to be hate across the board for everything and all people, right? But then there are you are hurting someone you are stronger than is an extra level of hate, you know?
Mhm.
That's there's something there that's unforgivable in a way like even in a crime book you could be a brutal murderer but you're still punching up because you're headed towards the kingpin, right? You're going towards the person who's taking full advantage of the situation, right? Whereas in this situation it's like oh and anyone comes within a foot of you is going to get hurt, you know? So,
Yeah,
and it's funny because there's some of that in the Jim Thompson novels, right? In some of them, right? And then you always find out what the relationship to their mother was or something. You go, oh, okay. Now, not to excuse it, but it gives you a, oh, I see how we got here, right? And and at least from the Darwyn, I'm only going from the Darwyn stuff. They never give you that. They never give you the, here's how we got here. You can piece together stuff, you know.
Yeah, it just like I said, it's an adaptation. We don't have to know everything, but it did paint him in a much better light than the novel does.
Yeah,
So
it's not a great light, but I
it's
will
still
say
not
just
a
as
good
a
light. It's still-
creative person, I was interested that someone who spent so much time with the joyful part of the DC universe or the hopeful part wanted to spend so much time, years of their
so
life
good. Yeah.
with Parker. That is fascinating to me. I've been in similar situations where you're going to be in charge of someone else's character and you have to really think about yeah, a gig's a gig, great, but this was a generated project where I want to do this. I want to take these stories and adapt them and find the comic book language of them and why these versus something else, just fascinating to me. All right, thank you, Kari. That was excellent observations. Yannick, how are you? You got
Yes,
unmuted.
yes, yes. I'm doing great. Yeah, it's funny because now I'm going to chime in as to how the character wins me over when I read the books, as opposed to how all we talked about is one thing I think is really that comes across in both how the story is told and what I like about Parker and these types of books generally is that you see a lot of process how he works. And I've this does not make me like the character, but it makes him compelling to me because I guess I see the way the character thinks or problem solves or goes about reaching their goals, which is super, super exciting to me, like narrative wise. You see so much fiction where a criminal just happens to have a gun that's seeing the fiction where he figures out how to get which type of gun at which place and how to use it. There's something, and I guess also it goes in his characterization as a craftsman
Yes.
that also like Carrie mentioned, she doesn't feel that he's a misogynist. Like I don't feel like he has true actual prejudice, hatred towards anyone because that gets in the way of being the professional criminal craftsman that he is. So that's why that doesn't seem like that big to me, and I'm able to, I guess, put it in a box and just enjoy the fact that he's gonna tell the book is going to tell me how he goes about committing his crimes. And now that I talk about it, I feel like that sort of merges with the fact that the book really feels hand drawn, it feels hand lettered, it feels really constructed in a very organic way. And in whenever Parker's introduced, there's always like discussion about his hands and stuff like that. So I don't know, these things like feel like these they talk to each other somehow to me.
Well, a few things. Number one, yes to everything you said. I there was a big literary thing about just like, and they talk about in the movie Quiz Show. Scorsese's character has this line where he goes, "I don't know why we were cheating. People just want to watch the money." That's the we
Mhm.
know this. We know that people just want to watch the money transact, right? And so a lot of crime fiction is literally about, yeah, you know what? I'm never going to rob a bank. Show me how you rob a bank. I just want to watch you do it, right? Do something clever. Do something just 10% more clever than I would have thought of, right? And that there's a lot there to what's behind crime fiction and being on the criminal's point of view, right? Or also does but Oh, also, we've covered another book that does this. The Killer
Mhm.
graphic novels are feel very similar to we're watching an operation unfold and we're not going to judge it right now, right? We're just going to watch him be an assassin and feel how we feel about it. The movie does the exact same thing. So yeah, there's a long history of just that. Like part of watching Breaking Bad was how does someone who's smarter than me go about doing this? You could give me the ingredients to meth. I'll never be able to do what you're doing. Show me how you do it. And so I can sit here on my couch and pretend I'm a badass too. So yeah, yes to everything you're saying there. I really think that's interesting. I just removing the part you can empathize with. Like I just, we were talking last time I just watched Kill Bill and, they take that baby away first shot of the movie. So you're always like, listen, all bets are off. You took the baby, John Wick. You took the dog. All bets are off. That's it's a free ticket to go nuts on everybody, right? Because you guys broke the rule. Don't don't kill the baby, you know. So anyway, all right. Thank you, Yannick.
Oh, just
Yeah.
before, I just want to say because Mad Men was mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
Here is one of my prized possessions. Is when Darwin came at the Montreal Comic Con.
How
I
did you
asked
not open with this? Come on.
I I asked him because he was taking like for this is bad radio, this is bad podcasting. Like I asked him to draw Joan Holloway from Mad Men,
That's
and because
fantastic.
everyone was asking him to draw like Green Lantern from New Frontier or Superman, which are all characters that I love, but I was like, oh, I want to ask him to do a character or something he doesn't do a lot.
Yes. Most of
And
my friends that are artists love that.
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I asked him like to do like John Holloway from Mad Men, and he said yes. And I was at the convention for work, like I was showing one of our games. So I was going back and forth to his table during the weekend, like waiting for the art to come in because I guess he would go to his hotel room and draw it. And when he gave it to me, like on Sunday, like he asked me if I was happy with the likeness, and I was flabbergasted because he could have insulted my parents, and I would have taken it and would have given him the
I'm
money, and
glad
I
he
was
did.
like, "Thank you, sir." But no, he gave it, and it's one of my prized possessions.
Yannick, I can't believe you had the self-control not to just immediately in their face. That's incredible. That was
Yeah.
awesome. That was really, really cool.
Anyways, I'll post a picture of it in the
Please
Discord to people if
do.
you want to see it closer. I also got at the last Comic Con. I went to San Diego Comic Con this summer, and I got one of his spirit pages, which he's like he's sort of half like I think it's not all the way drew by. I think it's mostly like a lot of J Bone inking, but it's wonderful and it's pretty much all the possible affordable art I think you can get from his work right now is probably all in the spirit. So yeah.
Awesome. Yannick, thank you. That was very cool. All right, Wes, you're up. What you got? Hot
Uh,
take.
hey,
That's
I got nothing.
okay.
A couple of things. First of all, I want to say, in this book club, we've talked about Criminal, we've talked about 100 Bullets, we're talking about this. We just do Scalped, and we've hit my Mount Rushmore of 2000s crime comics that got me into the genre. So this has been great. So talking about adaptation and Parker quick. I also read the novel The Hunter, for the first time last year, and it struck me because I've seen Point Blank, I've seen Payback. I think Darwyn, at least as far as I know, he has done the best adaptation of Parker, period. He's not making a ton of changes to it. He's keeping the core of the character and the story, and he's doing it so damn well. I was just it felt like such a breath of fresh air revisiting this because I've seen other people do it, and it's just not as good, I think.
I will also say the one thing, and this goes back to something Kari was talking about as well, is when adapting a novel, again, and some of these pulpy novels are much more external than they are internal, but they are internal. Like a novel is an internal narrative, and a lot of times when a book is seemed as unadaptable into cinema, it's because you're so inside the person's being that there's nothing like what are we looking at, right? That's it's not the same storytelling device. But here, I thought, what an excellent way to adapt the internalized, go from internalized narrative to externalized narrative by being very visual, by being very like, that's when things are the most quiet, as you can see I bet this is just tons of words. Just this page that's silent is probably like 2,000 words,
Well,
right?
and I think that's part of it because Parker is very internal. He is very cold. This man does not feel a lot of emotion. He does not feel a lot of empathy. Going back to what Yannick said, he is a professional criminal, and he is not an anti-hero. This is not Wolverine or anything like that. Like, no, this he is part of a group. He even threatens it like, hey, I am part of a group of people. We're all across the country, and we can do this and we can do it very well. And I think that's something that it's just a different animal than what we get of, especially today in a lot of fiction. I think, and this is me on my soapbox a bit, we try and humanize people, characters in fiction. And I think Parker is from that mold where it's like, yeah, no, you can't really humanize somebody like this. What little humanization there is left, I mean, his wife betrayed him. So yeah, he's really cut that part of himself off now, and if you read the Parker books, you see, Grofield and some other people that he does feel some fondness for.
Right.
And I think that's where you get that. So it did no, other people have talked about the style of this. I included a link to. I just found out last month there's a French publisher adapting another Parker book, and boy, it looks very similar to what Darwin did. It looks very, very similar. So I think he left his mark on this character. So no, this was great. And so one question I had, and I tried to find something out about this and I couldn't. Did Darwin use actors as kind of inspiration for some of these characters? Because I was looking at the character of Val and I can only see Bob Hope.
Oh, yeah, I
Interesting.
don't see. Yeah, I
I
don't see that.
I looked
I
at
took
it.
it in a very like illustration of the time, had like types,
Yes.
right? And those types were very much influenced by the actors that were famous of the time as well. You can see a lot. It's talked about a lot in Mad Men, even like, the reference was we need a Marilyn Monroe type, and then you would see what they thought that was, and it's not necessarily what we thought it would be. Right. So when I see that, I see like a Robert Mitchum like Parker, right? But it
Yep.
doesn't, it's more like a shape of Robert Mitchum than it is looking like Robert Mitchum, if that makes any sense. And having had these conversations over the years with different actors' likenesses are allowed to be used or not allowed to be used for certain adaptations, right? Like how do you get across the look of the character? Like James Bond is one where they don't always have the likeness of the actor, but you're supposed to be making a James Bond comic book, so it kind of
Mhm.
like looks like sometimes it like to Paul Glacy, James Bond looked like Sean Connery and Roger Moore had a baby, and this is what the baby looked like, right? And he may see different, but it had like a Bond ambiance. So I always took it more like the cinematic ambiance of the generation before it than it was anything else. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I would say, Mitchum was definitely channeled for Slam Bradley.
Yeah.
Sure.
And yeah, like you look at the eyelids, the droopy eyelids, and it's like, boy, this is not Robert Mitchum, to some degree. So that was just something. Like I said, I once I saw the likeness to Bob Hope, I couldn't unsee it, and
Yeah,
I
no,
just wrote
I
it
get
as
what you're
Bob
saying.
Hope.
I get more into like, oh, look what the energy of the day was, or look what look what the influence of, or sometimes taking something again that's being adapted now visually that wasn't visual, and then you adapt it visually, you can see, oh, it's Robert Mitchum. It's not described that way, but when you draw it exactly as described, oh, okay, it's almost like reverse engineering the influence.
Hmm.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like, people keep remaking their version of Star Wars. Like, yeah, it's Flash Gordon. You keep ringing the same bell because there's a bell that's attached to. Anyway, all right. Thank you, Wes. Dave, library kid, how are you?
Hey guys, there's, I agree with what everyone's talking about the content, the definition of the character. What Brian talks about growing up in the 70s, with the crime noir, Gene Hackman, repressed dark male emotions, movies. I found myself sort of numb to that. It's like, okay, I can put my fingers into this. It didn't shock me, the characterization and content. And so I ended up really focusing on the craft and the execution. And there were three things that I took notes on that struck me. And I'd like to hear from John and Brian, especially, what you think about these. Um, the first is, as was mentioned, is the first 12 pages is almost zero dialogue. And it's something I felt that immediately you can do this in a graphic novel. I think you'd get editorial pushback if you tried to pull that off in a 20-page single issue, especially in today's comics. But in a graphic novel, you've got sort of this runway to introduce a character in a story visually this way. And I felt it really welcomed you into that world in a way that it wouldn't have if there was, straight narration all the way through. But the thing that struck me, and I have to apologize because I make fun of Brian always for saying we're going to book club about one book and then want to talk about the whole series. But
It's hard not to see the four of them as
right.
one piece of artwork,
And
particularly with him no
what
longer
struck me
being here.
was you go through this and then all of a sudden you get these chunks of text narration. And I really felt that in the first book, it was out of balance. So I went and I jumped ahead to the fourth book, Slayground, and I felt that in that book, Darwyn was maybe a bit more confident about cutting more of that text and being more succinct. It didn't sort of weigh as heavy as I felt it did in The Hunter. Um, and
Interesting.
the third thing I noticed, and this Brian directly applies to you and your craft, is the monochrome style, not straight black and white, but the use of a colored monochrome theme in each book, I felt softened the darker elements. And I wondered how I would have felt about this book, or how I would have, vice versa, what I would have felt about something like Torso or Jinx if
Mm.
it had been done in monochrome color instead of black and white.
Well, all three of those are excellent. I'll answer you. I was also fascinated by the clear growth of vision over the course of the four graphic novels. Visually, it's painfully obvious, like how much more confident he got with the choices that he laid down in this book that we're talking about today, The Hunter. It's a little more gritty and a little more like the washes are a little less defined in their space than as he goes on into the third and fourth. I thought it's much cleaner. Um, and I don't think it was a narrative choice. I think he just got more confident with, oh, this works and people like it. I'm going to continue doing this. And there that you feel that even there's an energy on like some TV shows where you can feel that hot energy in the first season where like they don't know what anyone thinks, and by third season like, oh, we're a hit. This works. Let's go. I was just literally watching 30 Rock with my son, and there is such a winner's energy to the third season of, oh, okay, this works, let's go. And you can see it a lot with comic book creators as well, too, where those first few issues, man, or the first graphic novel, you're kind of creating it in a wind tunnel of hope someone likes this, and particularly if you're taking a swing. And let's be clear, compared to New Frontier, this is a big swing that could have been met with poorly, or the just not. Sometimes just timing. It's just not now, right? And instead it was met well and seen as an evolution. And I will tell you that a lot of my friends, my good friends, who work very hard to really distill their energy and their craft down to a more simple, not I don't want to say simple, but a more refined version of themselves as they get older. You kind of see that as like how close to Alex Toth can I get and still retain all of the energy of my work, right? And with that comes the worry that you're actually taking away the thing that everyone liked, right? So when I read this first book, I'm like, there's a little concern here that this is not what people are going to be digging. And then by the third one, you go, oh, you guys are into it, I'm into it, let's just go nuts. I've never done the third color wash in my work, even though I've done tons of black and white, and I've made choices about where that black and white can go. And Mike and Taki and I made some interesting color choices for like Murder Inc., where we only did complementary colors. There's like basically two color, but they're not washed. They're shapes because Mike does shapes, and so we were thinking about what those contrasting colors look like and what they mean, and do they help tell the story, or they distract from the story? That's always your big concern. Is this artistic flourish that I've chosen? Am I doing it to cover up something that isn't there? Or am I accentuating something that needs this to be unique? So every project it's its own. My friend Matt Fraction and the boys did this with Casanova, where they had that one color treatment for a very different effect than they're doing in these books here, with a different energy and a different purpose. So I would compare and contrast other people who have done this. Obviously, Sin City did this a little bit in the later versions. I don't. It's to me, and I don't feel it here, but that one color brings a lot of attention to itself, and you have to control that, right? You have to be very aware of that. Where a full color is a palette. Black and white is a choice, but it's also a palette. One color is saying, I'm making a very specific choice and you're going to have to deal with it here. But it's not unlike watching like a David Fincher film or Peaky Blinders where the cinematography is dialed down so hard that you're like, you're going to notice this. This isn't what the world really looks like, right? So I don't know about a yes or no on this, other than I have thought about it a great deal. At one point, I was considering bringing Jinx not into full color, but into primary color, like I had on the covers, where I would just like an orange face, blue background, and just drop color into the black and white. And then it was one of those weeks where someone pointed out like Spielberg should stop messing with ET, not to compare myself, but just that impulse that you're going to keep touching it till you ruin it. Like just keep moving forward, and that's always been the right answer for me, particularly is just clean it up. If someone points out a typo, fix it. But other than that, move forward. And yes, by the way, that happened to me this week. We're going back to print on torso because of the movie news, and they found more typos from 30 years. It's been published by every publisher in this beautiful land of ours. They've all found typos, and yet I found
Right.
more.
So
It's a
John,
superpower. I'm proud of myself.
I mean, did you feel that it softened the violence or misogyny by having the color
No,
present?
it didn't. It made
No.
me feel that the author had a choice they're making here and using it almost like it's almost like a graphic design choice too. It's like helping spatial elements, but particularly when you have a like only black and white and you have a foreground, midground, and a background, things can flatten out very quickly. But with that one extra color, it gives you kind of a plane of existence to push things forward and backwards. And it also can, in my opinion, we may differ. I think it accentuates violence and other things. Like that's like when there's blood, it's usually in that color. It's showing you, literally pointing to the violence in some places, or making other images that might not seem violent. Oh, he's just standing there, but the background lets you know violence is coming, or this is
Also,
a
I
violent
think
image.
it evokes that period of advertising when they had literally a limited budget and they
Yeah,
could only afford to do
thank
one.
you, John. Perfectly
Yeah,
said.
and so from that standpoint, as far as the additional narrative in parts, agreed that the evolution as we got through the four graphic novels, it did evolve. But what I've always appreciated when a comic book creator is not afraid of dialogue and not afraid of
Me
narrative,
too.
because it's like, no, guess what? I'm really sorry. I know you're used to 20 words in a word, in a panel, but I'm going to make you read. And it's like, good, challenge
I,
me.
I'll
I
even
think
add
that's
to that,
great.
John. I agree completely, but I will say that I was all when I opened up the book, like a lot of people, oh, there's not a lot of words here, and it's an adaptation of a novel. How interesting.
Yes,
This is the choice we're making. And then kind of like to lean into the different ways to like now I expect it to be a silent comic. Nope, not a silent comic. Oh, now it's going to be dense. Oh, if it's dense here and it wasn't there, there must be a reason this is dense. I'm going to doubly read it if that
you
makes any
got it.
sense. Like if
Yep.
you went 40 pages without this and now you think you need it, then I'm much more interested in why you've done this. And there's been other comics over the years that have balanced it poorly or balanced it well. There were, not to poo-poo, but yeah, there were times where Cerebus was very frustrating to me, where it would be like this could have been very visually interesting. Instead, you turn that page and there's literally 1,000 words to read. Instead of going, "Ooh, let's read it," you go, "Ugh, okay, here we go,"
Sure.
right? Um, but there's been times where Alan Moore has done it to great effect. And again, it's that balance, and it's also for a lot of authors on this call, um, just kind of define your own expectations, both for yourself as a creator and the audience. And I felt I was being kept on my toes a little bit narratively. Like, oh, like as soon as you think it's going to go this way, nope, we're going this way. I'm like,
Yep.
oh, kind of like that, didn't see the page turn coming. So
Also,
I guess I had a different feeling about it than you did,
beyond
Richard.
the opening being silent, him creating the fake IDs and getting the money that he did. Certainly, do we all think of Catch Me If You Can and the real story of Frank? I forget his last name. Very long.
Abagnale.
Abagnale.
I should
Thank you.
not know that. There are cousins in my family whose name I couldn't pull up, but I just pulled up Frank
Attaboy.
Abagnale Jr. out of nowhere. That's not cool.
But also, I
Anyway,
mean, and it's yeah. Matt Wagner has always said when we've talked about setting things in a certain period, um, you could get away with a lot more then, as opposed to today's cameras everywhere, mic'd everywhere world, where he always said Batman really can't. How does Bruce Wayne keep the identity and the location of the Batcave still a secret as we talk
oh yeah, yeah.
on
It's
the
it's
anniversary of the 66 show. But yeah,
yeah.
seriously, man, where Google Maps and stuff like that, good luck. And that's another thing that I love about this era and setting things in mid 20th century. Yeah, I think are interesting and exciting story opportunities that aren't there in a modern story.
But John, I also want like what you said about like that's what images look like of the time, like that splash of
Advertising.
color.
Yeah,
There was a long period of time where adding any kind of color to any imagery, like doubled the budget or tripled the or full color
absolutely.
was like a whole more uni. Even when I started in comics, if you wanted to go to color, that's a universe of difference financially, right?
Sure.
So these choices would be made like this is what we can afford, or this is what the client is willing to pay for. That
Boom.
was a lot of it. They give them the choices,
Yep.
black and white, color, or a splash of color, and they go for a splash of color, you know, and usually the splash of color would match their logo or something like that. So anyway, but I do think that's harkening back to that, but then using it for another thing. All
Yeah.
right. All right. Thank you, Dave. That was awesome. That was
Excellent,
really,
Dave.
really good. Did we get all three? Because those were three excellent ones.
Well, just the last thing was, I mean, if you turned in a 22-page
Oh
first
yeah.
issue to your editor, and 12 of those the first 12 pages were no dialogue, can you get
I've
away
done
with
that.
Well, people know the silent issues of
I
Steranko and
believe
GI
Ultimates number
Joe.
one is basically a silent World War II opening.
Which number one?
Mark Millar's Ultimates number one. Isn't that like
Oh, I
I
don't
think
know. I have
there's
to
a
go
few
back and
there's a
look.
there's a few examples of like coming in hot with a
Well,
narrative idea. Oh, he's looking, he's
Steranko,
looking.
yeah,
Like,
Steranko in that Shield story where him and Val have the love scene and the
yeah, I think
infamous.
we're a few issues into that run, though. I think that's his
You're
point
right.
of
That's
like you
fair.
like you opening. But I will say, Dave, I'm not arguing your point because you're right. There is a again, author to author, there's a different vibe of creating a narrative that is a graphic novel that has like an that you can actually can control the arc of the visual or control like you're right. It's not 22 pages you're playing with. You're playing with 144,
You
and
got it.
so I can break it down like this 20 is going to be this way, this 20 is going to be that way, and you can actually like plan the overall narrative. I had a lot of fun exploring that with the graphic novels that I've done over the last few years with Phenomena. Like once I'm like, oh, this is a graphic novel, not a comic book series. Like the whole format of the way I was thinking about it changed. And I will just to be clear, and I know not no brag meant. I was so excited that when you guys asked to do this one, because recently Mike Oming and I have been assigned an adaptation in a similar vein. And it's not a Parker novel, it's not a Richard Stark novel, but a well-known author adaptation of a well-known, very stylish book that has not been made into a graphic novel, and it's for adults. And I was like, oh, I was so grateful that you guys chose this. Like, and giving me a chance to luxuriate in these choices and to consider what our choices will be. Which, by the way, included, as I believe Wes brought up, that not Oliver Twist, there are portions of the narrative that are just not here, that are just you're adapting and you're choosing what needs to be shown and what needs to be talked about, and not everything does. Or what's the graphic novel versus what's the movie versus what's the novel, right? And so we definitely have to make choices about what we're going to keep in, and what will it feel lost, or will it feel like unnecessary to this experience? Don't know. But I was very interested in, and I will spend more time with what he chose to leave in and what he chose to leave out, and it still feels complete. Like I didn't feel like something was missing when I was reading these. And sometimes, even watching a movie adaptation of a book I haven't read, you can feel you got something's missing. Something wasn't in the narrative. So again, I'm sorry for the humble brag, but like I was analyzing these choices very deeply. And oh, like when people think, and I will say to the opening choice, when you think adaptation of a novel, you think, oh, it's going to be text heavy. And you think about, and I'm not poo-pooing on anybody because some of these are my favorites. You think of those DC sci-fi graphic novel adaptations like Demon with a Glass Hand by Marshall Rogers, which was
From the
excellent.
80s. Yeah.
Yeah. So like Darwin definitely grew up reading these like I did, and I felt like some of his choices were an answer to that which came before, like Classics Illustrated. Yeah, even the tremendous ones like Bill Sienkiewicz on Moby Dick were just like, and you can feel like, what am I beholden to here? This is the great text of a great novel. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm trying to adapt it, right? So what can I do to adapt it without, thinking I know better, right? So a lot of these things are just, here's the text. I'm going to plop it right here in the middle of this page, right? And I thought how interesting it was that he chose, no, I'm not going to do that. You're gonna turn a few pages and go, oh, narrative light, but word light, but not narrative light. Where you can tell everything that's going on, and you can almost in some of the pages start to imagine what the words were, like how this was described in that voice. And I can see it from the images without having to read it, but I can start writing it in my head. What a unique little magic trick that's being produced here by doing that. So I thought that that was an experience that I had wanted from other adaptations I'd read over the years, and maybe Darwin felt the same way. Again, I can only guess. But based on this choice, boy, really, really feels like it. All right. Steve, how you doing? And we'll tighten it up. I know I even said to John, I go, let's keep this tight, and then we never do. I apologize. But it's
Thank
a
you,
good
everybody.
conversation that I really appreciate.
Thank you. So I never read the novels. I never saw the movies. So this is my first experience, first time experiencing Parker. I was very excited because it had been on my list of graphic novels to get the whole series.
Had you
Right away.
experienced Darwin before?
Yes,
Okay.
mostly through the New Frontier, the comic, as well as the movie that I loved. I thought they did a good job. Anyway, so back to this. The I love that while I was reading it, especially the way it starts out, where it's just here's a bunch of information about the character, like character is told to you through actions. And this first 20 pages just sets that up perfectly. You know exactly the type of person he is. His first interaction with somebody, and it's negative. And so you kind of get the feeling of who this guy is. And as he goes throughout the first 20 pages, he's pissing people off along the way, or he's being very over the top rude, almost for no reason. You get so much about the character by the end of those first 20 pages. You also kind of learn that he's not just a big, dumb kind of like, he's not just muscle. He's also like kind of clever and a crook. And you're getting all of this all through actions and without really any words. And then knowing that it was a novel that was adapted, I had a fun time kind of imagining, oh man, how did they, like all the tricks that comics can use that novels can't, that were applied, where it's like Fraction always says nothing in a comic is on accident. Everything has the purpose, right? And in the comic, you need to make sure that you're using everything intentionally and correctly. So like the amount of information you're getting per page, per panel is very intentional. The amount of information you get from the words, every word is chosen very carefully. Because like you said, there's a novel, there's a whole bunch of words to choose from. The first opening where it says a fresh-faced guy in the Chevy offers him a lift and he tells him to go to hell. Why is it a fresh-faced guy? Well, those are the type of people that Parker doesn't like. It's the people that feel alien to him. Right away, you get that. And even there's a part where he's in the subway, and he's in the subway car and he's riding it, and you can see that panel, and it's on page 12 at the bottom, and you can see the way people are giving him kind of weird looks and looking away from him. You know he smells like cigarettes and booze and whatever, and you could see that. That's something that's not being told to you. It's something that's completely visual, but it's a different sense, right? Which is what comics, like when they're firing all cylinders, can do. It can do all of these things. And I really, really enjoyed like when I could see things like as a sequence. Again, kind of back to what Fraction would say. I would ask him about like how do you determine what like goes into a panel, and like when like for pacing for like what's a page. And he said, well, like you want to have the right information per panel, so this way when you view the page as a sequence, it makes sense, right? Yep. So like you look at like page 21 where he's inside the restroom, right? They're all different panels. He slips back his hair, he scrapes his teeth, he buttons his shirt, he gets the tie out. Every individual panel is not a lot of information, but you look at the page as a whole complete sequence, and it is a lot of information, but it's very, very easy to read, easy to understand, and you feel everything. He scrapes the it's so clever. It's like scrape the actual teeth. It's like, oh, this dude hasn't brushed his teeth in forever. He's got gunk building up everywhere. You know, he's disgusting, but he cleans himself up. When he goes to the banks, he goes to different banks. If you're paying attention to the panels and the information, it's very specific. The first time I read it, I didn't see it. I went back and read the page again. I was like, oh, different banks. Of course, he's trying this everywhere and getting denied. And then he finally finds some suckers that'll fall for it.
And for the fellow authors in the room, everything you just said, I completely agree with. And when it's a page, when it's a sequence of a page, like even going back to like Steranko times, right? Some readers will just take it in all in as one big image, and some readers will read it beat for beat for beat and take in every little detail. So it's kind of like it's up to you, but it's kind of best when it works on both levels. When like you just read it as he's busy, right? Or you read it as every single choice here, including the teeth. Some people wouldn't even notice the teeth, but other people like, oh my God, okay, now I know what's going on with this guy. And you're so right, but it's an interesting little magic trick to also be able to come up with sequences like that work on that go as deep as the reader is willing to join you with. You know, they can keep looking at it and seeing different things. And sometimes it's literally with where is the shadow, right?
And that's where like the graphic novel portion kind of works so perfectly, because there's no first person narration and you don't even hear the narrator come back in again, which you're watching everything. So like you understand he's a bad guy, but you're interested as hell. And when you brought up like why are we interested in characters like this, it's like I'm interested right off the bat because I want to know why he's doing all these little things he's doing, and all of these things are for a purpose. And you see why, and it unfolds slowly. So you're totally curious at the way this person is operating, and you're being kind of you're also not familiar with the world. This book takes place, in the 60s. They're showing you not just the 60s, not just like Manhattan, but this specific world that he lives in. So like you're being it's rolled out on a red carpet for you to like experience it for the first time, and kind of from his point of view. What I really, really appreciated too was like I, as a writer, struggle with finding out how many panels am I putting in this page, what information needs to be saved for the next page, how do you kind of determine that? And like in page 25, I would have turned this into 2 pages. It's 7 panels. He is the empty steak plate. He's looking at the bill. He pays an exact change, right? He doesn't leave any tip. And then he leaves and you see the pissed off waiter. And I'm like, boom, you get it right there. Why do we have 3 more panels? You should just go ahead and move on. But he's bringing you back to like, okay, now he's in the hotel and now he's starting to booze by himself. And you're just kind of like, okay, why did all that stuff need to be quick? And it's because it's setting up, hey, all of this stuff can all be here together. This is important information, but this is not an emotional moment. when it does slow down for that, it takes advantage of it because it's setting up rules and then it's breaking them when it wants to. So like there's a part where he's after he drops off the body of his former wife and he's exiting the hotel. It's page 40. It's 4 panels. He walks out, he hears the cops talking about it. One of the cops says like who would like what kind of sick son of a bitch does that to a woman? And it's the largest page on the panel, and it's the only words that are there, and Parker's not in it. And I think that that's very intentional. When I read it, I was like, I haven't read the novels, but in my head, I'm like, that's super important. That's an emotional beat. If Parker was going to care about anybody, it had to have been her because for whatever reason, that lingers. Even when he's like not on the page, almost like he's not able to deal with it. That's the part that he has to not listen to. So like
Or
it
I
made it,
always take moments like that as a character so in their lane and so in their head, so in their own space that when they see other people reacting to them, any version of it is surprising.
Mhm.
Like, oh, you're like these people are judging me like in the abstract and they think I suck,
I
right?
think it's yeah, and you used to talk about like emotional values of scenes. So
Yeah.
like when I see in pages, right? So when I saw that other page, there was no emotional value. That's why you can have all those amount of panels in that page telling that specific part of the story. This page very specifically has 4 panels, large one being more bigger. So this way it has a heavier emotional kind of weight of that scene. So I really, really appreciate that. I thought that the amount of words that kind of come in the flashbacks, again, I wasn't thrown off. I didn't think it was unbalanced. I kind of just thought like, oh, this is the rules of a flashback. In manga, whenever there's a flashback sequence, the entire backdrop will be solid black. Just so this way you have the idea this is a flashback now. So the rules of the flashback are different than the rules of the regular portion of the book. And it tells it that way because all of that stuff, it's 13 pages, I counted it. There's so much like a hunk and chunk of story there. You're not going to be able to get that unless if you did that the regular way, it'd be a whole nother story in itself. You have to compress it and you have to give it its
Yeah.
own rules so it feels different and you kind of feel like you're a memory.
Steve, I'm so glad you got so much out of this. This is you got a lot of the right lessons out of it. Before it leaves my mind, because it speaks to the version of this we didn't want to see. The documentary Wick is Pain is on Netflix and it's not there much longer. I think it's on the Leaving Soon list. In the first half of the documentary, which is not flattering to anyone in particular, it's actually pretty honest in that like Heart of Darkness kind of way. Like this is what happened and we didn't all survive it. It was very interesting, and including the fact that the first act of John Wick went on and on and on and on before he left his apartment. Like there's some kind of like 40-minute sequence of him being sad that his dog is dead before he leaves, and it took them a very long time. And they were like filming for a long, like they show footage of it, of him just sitting there sad that his dog is dead for a while. And you're like, yeah, you don't need any of this, right? Just and then they show you what they actually did show, and it was like 5 seconds of clip, 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 go now, go murder everybody. And
Yeah.
I check it out because it's literally the other version of what you're describing of what you need and what you don't need
Yeah.
to get to the quote unquote good stuff. But the one thing, and I know I do want to move on, and but you brought up an excellent point, is that sometimes these journeys that don't seem to have any empathy, the surprises when you get to the end and there's no empathy, right? Because you're watching someone like be an assassin, or you're watching bad things go on, or we're watching the bank get robbed. And the point of the piece is this didn't make him any happier. This didn't change him, right? Or it made him worse, right? And a lot of audiences are wired for happy endings or quote unquote the illusion of a happy ending. As Alfred Hitchcock said, well, it really depends where you end the story. Like they're all shitty endings eventually, but watching this and thinking about like all of these choices could have led up to a cathartic experience. All of these choices could have led up to an understanding of himself that wasn't there before, but that's not what this is, and that's not what it ever was, and that never should it be. And even reading some of the reviews of the Mark Wahlberg version of him being like a charming Mark Wahlberg character, I'm like, yeah, that's not Parker. Like that's like everyone's like, that's
Yeah.
not. He's not trying to charm anybody ever. right?
Mm-mm.
So him
No.
winking at the camera is like, no, that's not it, right? Anyway, so look at those when you're thinking about like these choices, particularly when there's an anti-hero or a criminal in charge of the narrative, and like what you're hoping would get out of them. Like that's kind of like the horrible magic trick of the movie Monster with Charlize Theron, why she won an Oscar, is that you watch a character right at the edge go off the edge.
Mm.
And you're literally in the theater going, no, don't go off the edge. Don't do it. And they do it. Even though you know historically it's a true story, it's gonna happen. But watching that like you're on a journey, and some of these journeys are uplifting, and some of these journeys are damning, and that's what this is. Anyway, all right. Thank you, Steve. I could talk to you all day about this. This is my
Thanks, I
favorite
appreciate it. It
subject.
was really, really great.
All right, Zach, you're back. What you got? We're gonna do like a short version and wrap this up. I want everyone to get their thoughts in.
Oh, okay, sure. No, so just kind of circling back to something that I think it was Yannick said earlier about just making him a compelling character, and and then how other people react to him. He's not, I don't know if he's sociopathic, but there are some tendencies there. Everybody is a tool. They are a means to an end. He doesn't have friends. He doesn't have people that he truly loves. Like even like if you look at, I believe it was the third book, and I'm drawing a blank on the name of the book at the moment that we read.
Score.
Score.
The
Yes, thank you.
score, there you go. The
Yeah,
one
the
I
way,
read first because I thought that was the first one. Anyway, yeah.
yeah,
It's
the
our
way
numbers.
the way he describes Grofield to the woman that he picks up in the town and says that he's going to make mistakes and he's going to get clipped eventually, and then you go into Slayground and it happens. You know, not to spoil it, but like there's a scene where the car crash. Parker doesn't check to see if Grofield's okay. He grabs it and he goes. There's it's just, and he goes. I wonder what the only thought he gives to Grofield is, I wonder how he's going to deal with prison because he's never been there before. And then it's weird how he inspired kind of a weird loyalty in characters as well. And it was just because he was very, very good at what he did. And he always took care of making sure that everybody was fairly compensated if they made it through the process. And looking, even if you go back to the Brubaker Phillips story that they did is a Grofield story. And I won't spoil much of it at all, but like there's one scene in there where he goes, Parker wouldn't have given me any thought, but I still find myself thinking about him and what he would think of certain things every couple of years. Parker was always Parker. He was always upfront about who he was and what he was, and people either took him at his face value or they didn't, and were either let down by it or understood what his actions were going to be. So
It's an interesting character, and we see it in real life all the time, where people gravitate to people that aren't. And I'm not talking about like the world, but even like in general at work, you'll see people gravitate towards people that aren't healthy for them. You know what I mean? But you're right. There was this weird thing about so many people are not who they say they are, or putting on a mask of some sort. That you meet someone who, no, this is exactly who they are. There's almost a comfort there, even if it's if it's a terrible person. You're like, well, at least I know exactly where I am with this person. Is sadly and weirdly a comfort. So yeah. All right. Great point, Zach. Tad, how you doing?
I am doing well, Brian. I actually took like the deepest of deep dives into Parker a few years ago. I've read all of the comics, all of the novels multiple times. Um, One of the things that fascinates me is that like he famously has no character development, but that's not true. It just takes 26 novels for him to move as far as I mean, he winds up with a woman in like the ninth novel that like he spends the next six novels saying, you know, I'm never coming back to you, or probably never coming back to you. One day I'll get shot on a job and you'll never know. But he always comes back and they become more and more domestic without
I
him
didn't know
even
that. That's
really
fascinating.
realizing it. um I mean, because each story is about a specific heist, so catching a so as I've been listening to everybody here, and this is one of those cases where having the deep dive can still have you see other things. I'm going, you know at some point I remember that Parker was in the military, and based on the years, that was World War II. We know he didn't get fingerprinted, so he was probably already a thief because he got the fingerprinting guy to fingerprint himself instead. Um, and right now, at the beginning of the hunter, he's just come off his first fall. He's just gotten fingerprinted for the first time. He's about to have plastic surgery to change his face. We are actually seeing this man at his version of his lowest.
Boy, I did write down. I would like to see that in a movie where it starts as one actor and it becomes another. I know there's a couple examples of
Right.
it over the course of the year, but I don't think we've seen that in a while.
So yeah, it's
I know
it's
Face Off,
actually
but that's
like
not.
this character starting at his lowest. The only person he cared about with it was his wife. God knows if there's PT. I mean, I took enough. I spent a decade working in senior care with a lot of people from that greatest generation. The amount of trauma that got brought home from Europe and from the South
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Pacific is
Absolutely. That
insane.
that it
So
affects
so
almost all of
so
comics.
like what's weird to me about Parker, particularly the more time I spend with him, is like how much you have to piece him together from teeny tiny tidbits because
Yes.
he's
Given enough.
that perfect craftsman, and Westlake is a craftsman. These are such. There is not a wasted word in a Parker novel. Even when he's. I mean, I read The Hunter side by side with the graphic novel once, and first of all, there's like no dialogue cut. Like all of the dialogue in the comic is the dialogue in the book, and there's
That's
like almost
fascinating. All
almost
right.
no, but then like a page will be like 15 pages of description
Yeah,
because
that's
Parker could
yeah,
get it all into, but or Darwin could get it all into. So just like
that's
the
fascinating.
the cat the character itself is one of the more fascinating because it's not what you expect. We're used to strong character development, and what you see from Parker is what you get. But the more time you spend with him, the more you realize it's what he wants it to be, and not always what it is. I mean, I'm kind of
Right.
curious. I mean, you read the score. The score Parker feels just a little bit different from. I mean, you said he
It does.
doesn't
It
charm
does.
anybody. He spends all of the score charming people because he doesn't want to shoot them. Shooting them is a waste of time. It's not that he cares if they die. It's a waste of time and energy, and it makes it more likely that he gets caught. So it's against his code. We minimize death because that makes the cops chase you harder.
I'm have you considered, and you don't have to answer this, or if you don't have an answer, that's okay too. Have you considered why you've done such a deep dive into the character that you discovered all this? And I'm thrilled that you did.
I mean,
It's fascinating to me that there
part
was
of it
growth.
is I'm autistic, so I easily go on hyperfixations. Part of it I also have a podcast, and we may have done a deep dive on
That
Parker. I try not to mention that
perfect
on
answers
John's
both.
show.
Perfect answers both. No, what's the name of your no, now I want to listen. What's the name of your podcast?
22 panels. It was actually Chris Condon,
Oh,
Jacob Phillips, and Scott Dunbar and I
yes, I know
talked
exactly.
about
I know this podcast. Okay, I would
talked about Parker across mediums, and I started by just reading. I started as I'm going to take the Hunter because there's two movie versions of the Hunter. There's the audiobook, there's the comic, there's the book, and then I just fell down a rabbit hole.
I also appreciate that I had to pull the plug out of you. I would not have been able to hold on to that plug on my.
No, no, that's
I
totally
try
fine,
to
man.
be good to
Yeah.
John,
No, no.
but Brian, you are invited, and like
Yeah,
I
let's
have
find
somebody
something.
that desperately wants to talk about the second volume of Fortune and Glory with you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Yeah,
Okay.
I've now it's been out for a year now. I now have
Yeah.
Fallout. I know. Yeah, I have a different perspective on it. So, all right. Well,
And
cool,
I'll
cool,
plug
cool.
Josh because Josh is part of our Saga book club.
All right, Josh. There you are, man. Good to see you. All right, Ange. Really good to see you, Ange. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. First
Now that
comment.
DC's having this resurgence of excellence,
Yeah, Angie's
I think
pig in shit
I
right now. Are you kidding me? He's thrilled. Come
I
on.
know it just there's like I got to meet the real diehards when I was there, and I was like, so when I see my friends like really wailing and kicking ass, I get excited. Like you love Greg's crime book, right? The Cheetah,
Yeah.
Greg and Nicola's book, right? That's like right up your alley. So,
Yeah, yeah,
all right, very
yeah.
cool.
So first thing was I was wondering if you would think of Kyle Baker the way you were talking about Darwin here, where like the light
Oh,
stuff is
hell yes.
plastic surgery, well, Plastic Man, and then Shadow and that sort of stuff, sort of a
Perfect.
dichotomy of styles.
Well
Um,
said. We were just talking about him in my Portland State class. David Walker, that's David's hero. And I love Kyle as well, but like Kyle was and remains ahead of the curve on almost every level with every choice that he made. So
yeah,
and yes, and we're talking about even like the coloring choices that are similar to this and the lettering choices that at the time was a frustration for people, but now it seems like the most excellent choice. If you don't know what we're talking about, there's a book called Why I Hate Saturn, which is a must read. Maybe we'll
yeah,
talk about it on the show, but I think it's out of print. But yeah, I'm a huge Kyle Baker fan.
yeah.
Both
But
both both mainstream Spider-Man, Plastic Man, and the Bakers and Why I Hate Saturn and Cowboy
yeah.
Wally. Yeah.
Um, we keep going back to this silent opening, and I guess this is a how is the sausage made question for you. Like, Darwin knows what he can get across with just pictures and not words, but you're writing a script for an artist. And has there ever been a time that you saw art that you were like, I don't need any words here, remove my
All the
dialogue,
time. It's
or the reverse? I wanted this to be a silent page. Like I was reading this and there's that waitress and I'm like, I know I would have a do you want a slice of pie line that doesn't need to be there, right? How has or do you wait to hear who the artist is before you decide that there's going to be a silent portion, or
there's been well, sometimes you see like a silent version, like you can see it in your head clearly, and like I've done sequences, let's say with Michael Gaydos, both on Jessica Jones and Pearl, where I fully know that I can lay this out um and hope for the best because it's probably going to be better than I hoped, and it's every time. And then there's been times where I wrote what would be a traditional balance of words and pictures, but then the pictures come in, you go, yeah, I'm not covering up any of this. I'm like almost like it's a crime. In fact, there's a Kevin McGuire posted this online a couple years ago, and I think about it not just because I worked with him, but because it is the thing that most comic creators think of. Boy, I've drawn a lot of stuff that got covered up. It's like, boy, I drew a lot of trees. Boy, I've drawn a lot of windows that no one's ever seen, and the conversation went back. So I consider the post-it note I'm dropping on the art, and we've talked about this in other classes. Like every word balloon is a post-it note that you're sticking on art. So damn well make sure it's additive. And if it's not, be your choice. And there's something, and also when you're working with people who you admire a great deal, that your first impulse is don't cover this up is a good impulse just from a writing point of view, but sends you down a better trap. And there have been times, and I have met people who, when they get art that's that good, they feel like they're in competition for it. Oh, this artist is going to take over this project. I better write all over this. I better take up as much room and space. And I know I just saw a bunch of people just wince the little face of just that idea. But we've all experienced it. We've all read books that like they're not um they're not connected. They're actually smashing into each other, and the read is frustrating. I've even seen an artist overwrite for themselves. Like, no, you don't have to word any of these words. You just painted the shit out of this. Why are you, other than to show that you can write, why are you doing this? Right? So there's something really exciting happened with Andre Lima on Phenomena, where I'm like, well, there's nothing for me to do here that's going to be helpful other than get out of the way and let everyone feel what I just felt when I saw this, right? And usually you, the writer, are one of the first people to see the artwork. So whatever feeling you had when you read it, that's what other people are going to feel, or a version of it. And if it surprised and delighted you, imagine what's going to be to see someone who had no idea what was going to happen when they turned the page. So not to overly describe how exciting it is to yank the balloons. It's super exciting to yank the balloons when they're not needed. I have described, there's been a couple of times where the artist said, "Hey, what happened to the dialogue?" And I go, "Oh, don't need it." And they're like, "Oh, I liked it." I go, "Yeah, I can tell because you nailed it. You did it with like when actors talk about you did it with I can do it with a look. I don't need to say this line. I can cock my eyebrow and get a better laugh." Artists can do that too. And sometimes it's your job as a writer to go, get out of the way. It's happening. Everything you wanted to happen is happening. So stop, you know? So
And then,
I like both.
yeah, and
Uh,
then the reverse. Has there ever been a silent page that you're like, oh, I got to put a word balloon in because it's not telling the story that I wanted to
No,
tell?
I did. There was like a couple times where I've wrestled with, and I think there's some sequences and weirdly in like the David Marquez Defenders books where I wanted to do like a Steranko plop, a dialogue that was like designed into the art. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a just boxes, but here we're going to take this like little sliver of art and we're going to do just words and P. Craig Russell's done it too, where there's just like designed text that goes with the art, and I kind of wanted that to be the style. And then the art came in, and I went, and I may have written it like 10 times, like I really wrote it, and then the art came in, I went, no, it's not better. So I've literally come up to the point of having it lettered, and I went, yeah, no, it doesn't look better. So if I feel the overwhelming desire to now I have to write it because of what I've seen, there may be something off that needs to be addressed immediately. Like we're not connecting or the same story's not being told, right? So that's a but less is more is a mantra that I've lived by my whole life. It's always been the answer, particularly in comics. It's just what's the fewest amount of words you can use? When I look at older work of mine, I don't go, "Wow, you really underwrote the hell out of that." I'm always like, "That's I would done 20% less today than I did back then." So, knowing that that's always my impulse when I say my older work, I know that that's my impulse today is what don't you need to say here, right? And also, if you're dying to write a bunch of prose, then go write a book. Yeah, you should go do that. I've had friends that said, "Oh, you know what? I think I want to write a novel." Like, yeah, because I can tell from the way I'm writing the script, I'm getting novelty, right? So that sometimes your little voice is telling you. Sorry for the long answer, but it's a excellent collaborative question because for us writers, it it's not over till it's printed, right? It's like you always have the choice all the way to the end. And I've also been the benefit of watching some people really blow it, like just a really panic at the end and overwrite something that was wonderfully purposely underwritten, and then they panic and go, no, 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 I'll put words all over it so you can know I was here, right? Or like that's always I think the base fear from a writer is that they think they're invisible in the process when they're not, and that's not what anyone ever thinks, but they think the James Joyce I'm being paid by the word kind of thing. Every project brings its own energy, every scene brings its own energy. And also there would be times where you're thinking about it in a very wordy way, and then by the time the art comes in, you're just thinking about the scene differently. It's not even about the choice. The choice only accentuates the fact that, yeah, you don't need to be doing all this. So, all right, lecture over. But that's you can talk about it as much as you want offline too. It's a constant source of both excitement and stress is what's the balance that I'm bringing to this, both in the beginning and at the end. All right. And what honors the process both for the artist and for the reader. Because that's the other thing too, is you want to honor the artist, but if this doesn't make any sense, then the reader is getting bummed out. All right. Ethan. All right, and we'll wrap these up real quick. I'm sorry.
Okay, so just a couple of final, since we're just kicking some things out. If anybody has the book near them, page 105 has the most fantastic cityscape I've ever seen. You just crack it open to 105. It's just white on black, just dots. There are no vertical lines. There are no
Yeah,
lines
I
at
actually
all.
went to see if it
It's
was a
just
picture that he was fucking with in
like,
Photoshop. That's how good it
and
is.
yeah, it looks like it had been like refotocopied or something like that. Where it's fantastic. Also, to Steve points earlier about nothing is wasted. If you only read it once, go read it again. If you read it twice, read it again, but much slower, and ignore the dialogue and just watch the images, because there's tons of little storytelling things. Like what he said, the tip, the fact that it tells you on the bill how much there is, and it shows you how much is left on the table, and he didn't tip at all. Just these little character moments that are in the panels. And so, one of the things that is kind of going back to some of our earlier uh, discussion. One of the things that I find, especially in these old, especially stuff from like the 50s and 60s, some in the 40s, science fiction has the same issue. It has that baked in misogyny, and it has that baked in racism and stuff like that. Um, it's something that I'm glad that we as adults read, but I have 4 sons. I would not have them read this until they were full grown human beings with their own ethos and all of those that they had their own moral structure before I would give them something like this. But there are things that just I'm okay with, like letting go. Like, well, a lot of us have read the like I have no mouth and I must scream, and it's great as a sci-fi concept. It needs to I think it needs to go away. I think it needs to not somebody else, they need to get that in some other way, right? I can't. And maybe it's because of where I am as a human being, where, these days, it's not worth the price of admission for me anymore. But as they're older, as sophisticated readers, I'm okay with interacting with it and talking about it and stuff like that. I find that my tolerance has really, really dropped when it comes to modern incarcerations. No, modern versions of the misogyny and stuff like that. I remember watching. I said I watched Mad Men the other day. I was really uncomfortable, like, because it's rampant sexism, but they understand that it is. I almost still couldn't get past it, even
It's
though it was
also
just fine at
genuinely
the
a show
time.
about that. They're looking back on a time. Like, it's not like a
Right.
show that takes place today and everyone's
Not
behaving that
glorifying
way.
it.
They're
Yeah,
saying,
it's not glorifying it.
Right. But it's still so real. It's not something I want to like live inside of.
oh,
Whereas
sure.
when we did Historia is very much about the way women are treated, and Historia has a completely different tone. And I didn't reread that book. What?
And perspective. I mean, it's being told
And perspective,
from the view of the
exactly, right?
Amazons versus the point of view of what was his name in Mad Men? Dirk Diggler. It wasn't Dirk. It was Dirk.
Oh,
Dirk,
yes, Dirk. Yeah, Dirk
I'm sorry.
Diggler's dad. Yeah.
Dirk Diggler was Boogie Nights. I apologize.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, so it's a point of view. I will say, as this gets discussed more, and I certainly feel that I've done this, Ed's done this, that every generation kind of takes it further. So it takes it. Let's get rid of the shit that we've outgrown, and let's focus on the parts like that. Like yeah, I couldn't.
Where it uses it as a part of
Yeah,
whereas
we
Mad Men
know better.
is
Let's
something that I
act
might have
better.
difficulty
Yeah.
like getting through.
I say that about Ram V all the time. That he has
Right.
managed to take a lot of
But
pulp
like,
tropes and strip
Yeah.
away the bad stuff. Yeah.
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 But I
A
might
lot of
continue
writers
watching
do.
Mad Men,
Most
whereas
of the
I
best writers.
couldn't watch Game of Thrones. Right.
Okay.
If you go back and watch the very first episode of Game of Thrones,
Sure.
that's another level. Like, I know a lot of people watch it, but I watched the first episode and I was done. I was like, the treatment of women
I
in that
never
one
watched Game of
episode, I just checked.
See, and I
just
checked out of
I
Game of
checked out
Thrones
completely.
because in the pilot they're talking about they're always referring to some battle that happened that we're not going to get to see, and I'm like, oh, so we're not seeing the pilot? I got very into that aspect of it. Anyway, all right, let's Kari, what's up? What you thinking?
Turn
You're
off the
muted.
unmute yourself, buddy.
So muted.
So muted.
Oh, sorry. A, I only read Game of Thrones, so I have no idea what the show is. B, I'm pitching splash pages that we are totally getting you on one of these days sometime soon. I hope. I'm going to send you another email. It'll be great.
Who are you talking to? Me?
Yes,
Yeah.
you, Mr.
Oh, yeah,
Bendis.
About
yeah.
Carrie's
I'm in.
podcast, Brian.
Sure,
One
Carrie.
of my podcasts,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Did
I'm gonna grab
I
you.
not respond to a podcast request?
No, we've just like the timing has always been wrong. It's one
All
of
right.
those
No,
just
well,
scheduling issues. That's what happens. So,
done. Locked in.
but okay, so my question for you is, since you do like writing and drawing, when it comes to something like this where Darwin's going in and he's adapting this, how much does it, from your experiences anyway, or from what you might know about this, how much does he have control of versus the original author versus the editor
Oh,
and
that's a
everything?
great one.
Because there's
So
so many moving parts in this.
yes. So, if there's an estate involved, which may be the case here, or the original author is still with us, there's an organization in charge of this character, whatever shape or form. You do have to answer. And again, for like a lot of my friends work on licensed books, like anything from Micronauts to Turtles to
Bond.
anything that it belongs to somebody else, but it's being adapted into comic book form. You have what a song and a dance licensed books can be. Often, not to talk out of school, there's a lot of moving pieces. A lot of actors have likeness issues. A lot of approvals have to come by. But you're also dealing with, let's say, it's a franchise that's a TV show and a movie simultaneous to this comic, like a Rick and Morty or a Turtles. You then have to like dance between their raindrops, and they're going to take the best ideas or what they think are the best ideas for themselves, or shut down yours because theirs is got to be better. So there's a whole thing there. But then, like, I'm dealing with a book right now that has an estate that has approvals, right? So you get it down to, well, let's approve. Like I already told you, Mike Oeming is the artist, right? Like this is what it will look like, right? Just like this is it. Like approve this to start with, because then I've had friends that were on books that like it didn't even seem they understood who the artist was. They go, oh, this is very cartoony. I'm like, this is what was pitched. So to really, you want to set the table well. This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. Also, you want to talk to the estate. Like, what are the do's and don'ts? What do you guys, what's been an issue in the past, and what can we do to avoid it, right? Um, Even from that conversation, you can discover like what you need to do. Like even that, like they tell you something that's you're like, uh-oh. Like even that it can be very helpful. Like that's something better now than later. All right. So I've had friends that have worked on all kinds of projects, even with the author involved. I mean, remember they just put out a Homicide came out as a graphic novel series, with David Simon attached as author, but he doesn't have any experience as a graphic novelist, so he worked with people, right? So
Who's
there's
making it?
tons of examples of this going on almost every publisher. And so yeah, so and their job is to protect the franchise. Like that is their goal. Like protect it and make sure you squeeze as much money out of it as they possibly can. Not only sometimes in the short run, sometimes in the long run. So in this instance, I think it's a with what we know to be a very strong editor, that this stuff like those first 12 pages got approved and they were pretty much good to go. That's how I would imagine. I can ask Ed if there was more to it than that, but that's what it looked like. Like once we all agree this is the book, we're okay, right? So, but yeah, but it is a hardship unto itself. It really can be. It really and that goes for like people adapting novels into film or TV shows. There are other people involved who, and if there's any author involved that's not doing the adaptation, there's secretly thinking I could do this myself. And that's whether they can or can't is another issue.
I'll
Hence,
make a
filing.
quick editorial comment regarding that. I don't know who the people are at Condé Nast who own the rights to the Shadow. I don't know what kind of vetting they're doing, but man, James Patterson has no clue of how to write the Shadow, and it's really depressing every time there's a new Shadow book, and it's nothing like what Walter Gibson
Those aren't
did.
shadow books. Yeah, just
Yeah, they're not. They're really not. Anyway,
yeah, James Patterson loves slapping his name on stuff, man. I
God
know.
bless him. That's
Like
all right.
as
He
a
makes the
fellow
money.
author, I don't have that impulse. Like it's a weird thing to think about. Like why would you want your name on something you didn't write? Is very peculiar. Anyway, Veronica, how are you? You're muted.
I am muted. I'm good. I'm great.
First of all, Veronica's been dropping crazy awesome bombs this entire time in the chat. So check out
Absolutely.
what's been going on. We should publish these chat remarks. Really awesome.
Everybody's been
Um,
doing great
I
today.
had a
Go ahead.
question more than anything is what did this like everything I've read about Darwin Cook is he's just the nicest guy in the entire world. He was just like so lovely. Canadian, born the same year that it's set. This book is set. Uh, is there any? Can you give me any like insight into what it was about the series that made him want to do it? Was it like his dad loved it? Was it that he loved it? That
You
can I have
know
some
what?
background?
I can get back to you on that, and there's some interviews where he talks about it, but a lot of the times it's just you're gravitating to something and you don't know why. Let me adapt it so I can figure out why I love this so much. Like what about me wants to be here is the actual statement. Like I'm trying to explore it while I'm doing it, you know? And you're right, sometimes it's like my dad loved these books and now my dad will love me because
If I may, I know when he did his solo DC book, he really got nostalgic about the things that really influenced him. And I'm reasonably certain it is in that Art of Darwin Cook collection of
Oh, I have that book.
non-superhero stuff
Yeah, yeah.
that DC put out in the last. It's on my bookshelf in another room right now.
I
But he
have it in
really
the other
talks
room
a lot about
too.
his influences.
Veronica, I'll get back to you. I have the book. There's
I
got to
think I
be
have
a
it in a storage locker, like with a bunch of
But even
books.
like when like I spent a lot of time doing a different type of crime fiction, but I spent a lot of time doing it, and even like writing a graphic novel like Torso, where someone is investigating something awful, you yourself, the author, like why are people awful? It's like examining. I mean, it sounds like simplistic in a way, but really is it's the why am I here? I let me finish it and figure out why I'm here. I'll know at the end, but something compelled me here. Like I was drawn to like the fact that I was drawn to con artistry, which is kind of like, hero with a heart of gold kind of stuff. Like, they're only
Mhm.
robbing shitheads, so it's good. Like a Danny Ocean kind of thing. Like, but yeah, you go rob all those people. They deserve it, right? But why am I drawn to that? Right? Kind of like and getting to the system doesn't work for everybody. So someone can figure out how to game the system anyhow. I kind of always been impressed by. I don't know. It's
I think that
sometimes it's you don't know why. It's you
yeah. I
Well,
think that maybe like Stephen, others were on the like, they kind of nailed it with the everything that he's able to do without any of the language of the novels. That is something that's so, you know. Sorry, I'm falling asleep. It's 10 o'clock, and
it's a long one. I'm
I'm
sorry.
very elderly. I will feel very old. But everything that he's able to do in his own style and that's, I mean, that blew it open for me. But I wondered if there was maybe some interview or something where he gave a more
I,
personal
I
answer.
I should have had that before I got here. We'll
well,
But
find
I,
out.
I
He
should have done the research. I should do the research. But that's
If
it.
I
I
could
can,
make a suggestion,
yes.
he did a number of interviews with iFanboy over the years,
yes, he
and a lot of
did.
that's on YouTube. So you could, and he even did a panel with them, I think at WonderCon one year, and they
Yes, he
talked a
did.
lot about Parker. So there might be something in there if you peruse their archives.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Well, and also being from that same era, this was the cool stuff. Again, uh, for whatever reasons, and not to dismiss the misogyny, but these were the cool used books. And again, I'm only 2 years younger than what Darwin was, so again, we kind of followed what our older influences said. No, this is the good stuff you got to read. Mickey Spillane, the same kind of thing. Yeah, man. I mean, it's harsh, and that's why I can appreciate those who've already said it's not something I would turn my kids onto until they're more further developed.
It's
You know,
interesting because I have kids that are all like teenagers and young adults, and like
yeah,
where you want to introduce them to stuff versus when they just grab onto stuff
yeah, or
themselves.
discover.
Like we've all experienced like being pulled towards something, either because you're like, wow, that sounds like it would challenge me. I would like to be, I would like that challenge, whether literally it's reading Dune or reading something that's, like, a crime novel
Yeah,
from a yesteryear. It's like, or TV shows or movies, just like watching and like, even like every once in a while, my kid comes up, hey, I want to watch this. I'm like, no, not yet. No, just, but meanwhile, I know by saying that, I'm like, well, I'm going upstairs to watch it. I know I'm like, there's nothing makes something more cool than your dad going, oh, nah, not yet.
I literally just did a movie, a scene missing about Anatomy of a Murder, and my dad, I remember distinctly in the '80s, my dad singing that it was gonna be on at 1 a.m, and he's like, "Listen, I know it's gonna be late. Do you want to stay up and watch this with me? It's amazing." And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely."
I
I mean, it was harsh because it was rape, and I mean, it was a tough subject. And he's
I
like,
had the
he's like,
strongest
"You don't
memory.
understand." He goes, "This movie was banned in cities when it came out because of the morals of 1958." So no, exactly, and there is something really cool when and I'd say the same. I mean, this is why I love Chaikin and talking to Howard, because I see him as kind of another older influence that will turn me on to things that I wasn't aware of. And again, I'm like, all
Oh,
right,
for
if Howard
sure.
likes it, I probably will like it.
Um, I have a very strong memory of my mom coming home and saying, I just saw the most terrifying movie that's ever been made, and you should never see it because it'll destroy you. And it was A Clockwork Orange. And when we saw the like images and the posters, you're like, oh yeah, this looks like madness. And my mom, literally, who never said anything like this about any other movie, came home and goes, never watch Clockwork Orange. I couldn't wait to get my hands on. I mean, I couldn't wait. It just sounded like the most rebellious thing. What do you got there,
Matt
Matt?
Helm, sure.
Awesome.
Was that
Anyway,
one of the books, or is that Dean Martin, Matt Helm, David?
he's got the book. All
Oh, it's
right.
one.
But yeah, these old, cheap
Yeah.
pulp novels
Yes.
full of, dirty adult stuff.
Yeah, Men's
I have all the
Adventure.
shadow ones.
Yeah,
Yep.
man. No,
I
no, no.
I
But Matt Helm
I did my
is dirty.
dissertation on 1950s lesbian pulp fiction, which sold 1.5 million copies in a month, like at their height. And Patricia Highsmith, and there was a huge like women's era of this too, and it was simultaneous, like it was the
Absolutely.
pulp genre. Yeah.
And they were
Anyways,
all in
Yeah.
answer to each other, correct? Is that correct? Like they were actually
Interesting.
answering the Mickey Spillane. Am I
You
wrong
think it
about
was in
that?
response to that as a counter argument or something?
it was like as a book movement. Were they answering it? I mean, they started in a way to like.
I mean, like answering the culture. Like the culture is going one way and we're going to do,
Oh,
yeah.
I
You
don't
know what I
think
I
so.
mean?
think that it was kind of happening simultaneously. So
Yeah.
things that were uncensored, that they
Yeah.
could get away with publishing in pulp. So if they went away when censorship came in, and there were strict things like, if you had to commit suicide at the end if you were a lesbian, and you had to go to a mental institution and that kind of thing. But that was like last page. But I think that they were allowed to happen in the same like um, what is the name of the publisher? Something with an H.
Harlequin? Not Harlequin.
No, that's Canadian. Bannon,
Gold.
Bannon Books.
Oh,
Yeah. But
Uh,
anyways, that could get me on a whole other thing.
all right.
keep going.
And just before you go to mute, Veronica, your email is coming.
It's
I
okay,
was
don't worry.
literally just about to email you, and my daughter came in with 4 basketball games I have to be at this week, so I had to like rearrange some stuff. But that's just
No
we're,
worries.
we're
Good to
working
see you.
on like a little bit of pre-notice on things before I can schedule. Anyway, Steve, last one, and then we'll
Bring us
wrap
home,
up.
Steve.
Yeah, bring it on home, Steve.
So I had one issue with the book where it's moving, the pace is really great. Parker's about to he breaks through into the person's apartment, in a male's apartment, he's gonna attack him. And then the book just goes and does a backflash and it totally messes up the flow of the book. I felt like it didn't need to be there. It would have been interesting if he would have showed up with like, I don't know, a broken arm or like a bullet through the chest or something like that. And like the flashback would have been like, oh, this is how he got it. To me, it would have made more sense. I don't think we got anything more substance through that backlash of how he ended up climbing through his window. And I kind of wanted to ask you, when adapting other people's work, is it even a no-no to even ask like, hey, we want to include this because we understand there was a purpose why it was there in the book. It doesn't seem to be meshing well in our adaptation. We want to pivot. Can we do this? Have you all ever heard of someone doing that to add a little bit of substance or like a plot point to something that might not have been there?
Well, they certainly do it in movies all the time where they like over explain something or feel the need to explain something that may have actually been kind of magically not explained in the novel, and that's what everyone liked about it. That's happened quite a few times over the years where um, something's getting noted to death a little bit too much or in panic. Um, so I will tell you, just as I'm literally just about to start this exact journey on the book I just described to you, and as soon as everyone finds out what it is, it'll be exciting to have this conversation with you. But I have a very similar question to start with, which is, hey, can I start this 150 pages into the novel? Like I can actually like I think I can start the story here versus where the book starts. And I do have to make some choices. I have to like the book's 500 pages and I only have 144 graphic novel pages to tell the experience, right? So something's got to go. So I will let you know like what that reaction is and what the back and forth is because I am also fascinated about do you expect to see every single second of this novel adapted, or are we just going for the vibe, which is what these Parker novels are and what a lot of the best ones are, where they're just like zooming in on, right? Because you also don't want to come off as like like a Classics Illustrated or the Cliff Notes to an experience, right? You want to be a genuine, strong graphic novel experience, versus, and we've all experienced them, just like you don't feel anything magical. You just feel like you're being dragged through the paces of a story, right? So to be continued on that, I'll let you know. I'm excited that I get to follow this up with an actual experience that is different but similar and see what happens as we
Jo-
go.
And John, aren't you upset that there was zero boxing matches in any of this? I mean, it's 1960s, man. You had to have come across a smoke or a fight club somewhere in there, right? There's a
Not
great opportunity for it.
I hear you, man. No, absolutely. No, that's all right. I got Steve Sailor Costigan. What's his Howard? Robert Howard. Robert Howard's got me covered on boxing. Speaking
There
of
you go.
misogyny and speaking of stuff that you really got to pick apart and separate the bad from the good. So I'm covered
I
with
mean,
that.
yeah, I remember seeing the Red Sonja movie as a child in the theater going, this is sexist. Like it was the first time like that thought occurred to me, like that this is not, and I grew up in the 70s, so I had seen a lot.
Hey, I wanted to ask Greg because, and forgive me, Greg, if I'm profiling, but I see your last name and I don't mean to lump all Scandinavians in the same way if you are Scandinavian. But I really am fascinated by the Martin Beck crime novels. And I don't know, have you experienced those at all?
I have not actually. Part of the reason I haven't spoken up is this: the genre is totally new to me. I'm a middle school PG rated kind of writer and reader, and so this was a big stretch for me.
Okay.
It was very interesting. But you're right, Norwegian like about 3 generations back.
How
Okay,
many
man.
times have you been profiled for Norwegian noir writing?
No,
What?
but really, everybody, honestly, it's a different shade. But the Martin Beck stuff, Laughing Policeman was an American adaptation of one of those Martin Beck novels. It's Bruce Dern and Walter Matthau, and it's great. And I mean, but the real Martin Beck stuff is just incredible. And the BBC did excellent audio drama adaptations of the books. So again, if this whetted
Well,
your appetite,
it's
Walter,
certainly. Go ahead,
sorry.
please, Gary. Please.
Walter Matthau did some great stuff.
Charlie
Especially,
Varick.
I'm a fan of my whole family. We love A New Leaf with Elaine
Oh my
May.
God, yes, yes,
Oh, it's one of the best. And
yeah.
Yeah.
he's
No, there's a reason he was
hysterical.
Walter Matthau.
Yeah,
Yeah, he made some
but
bold
those
choices too.
those crime movies like Laughing Policeman and Charlie Varick and stuff, no, they're terrific. And of course, Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. And no, he's a genius. We love him.
Well, I think the big takeaway for those of you looking to do more of a deep dive on top of doing all the Parker stuff that Tad did is that there's also looking at what was going on in the world at the time, like what was it in response to or what was it speaking of, and sometimes I see people like criticizing movies or and the language they're using, but you're like, no, that's how people were talking back then. It's like not that it's right or wrong, but it is authentic
Context,
to the
yes.
world it was in and not just like language but like like what was going on that this was escapism, you know what I mean, or for some people, not for everybody, but for some people, and that's an interesting thing. I it's what a lot of the best documentaries will spend some time on that. If you watch, this is a weird pivot, but Summer of Soul by Questlove, which is on
Yes.
I believe Peacock, but just an amazing job showing you what was going on politically right down the street to why this concert was happening. And it just the whole thing changes when you see that, the whole thing. And so a lot of times with crime fiction, particularly, they are very much a reflection of the author's wartime experiences or their family's wartime experiences. They're reflecting that their morality has been altered or shifted from behavior that was rewarded in one space and is looked down to in another space. And a lot of these books are literally examining that from,
Or
from
like Veronica said earlier, Ted, forgive me real fast. Uh, this was the period of forbidden fruit. That was the door was open with Mickey Spillane. Sorry, Ted, go ahead.
No, no, I just wanted to quickly, since you're talking about language, plug your friend David Walker and my friend Marcus Anderson's book, um,
Big
Big
Jim.
Jim and the White Boy. Really, really
The perfect
takes a
examination.
deep dive at the specific language and why you use it, why you should, yeah.
No, David.
I was
David's
I
the
was
one.
just talking with Marcus about that again.
Yeah, that he David was the one who was pointing out like when like TV shows like Bridgerton where they'll show a more a diverse cast of people, and he'd be like, That's actually more racist because there were no
Right.
diversity in this space at all." And for you to reflect that there was is doing a huge disservice to what was actually going on there. Like that is not true. And I think about it all the time when he says that, like creating the world you wish it was versus what it actually was is not always the best answer. And if
That's a tightrope. Yeah.
it's a tightrope, but then it's why so many of us lean towards sci-fi when we're writing. Like, here's what I wish the world was like. This is, from Star Trek to Star Wars, it's always like, here's a reflection of what the author wished was going on, right? Diplomacy and nurturing and so if I wrote that as here's what how I see the world today, and I wrote all that, you'd be like, well, that's not what's happening at all. You're wrong. So, Kara, you
I,
got one, and then
yeah,
we'll
no,
wrap
I just had a quick Dr. Farger, Dr. James Farger was my sociology professor in in college. But he had a thing called Farger's Law of Science Fiction, and it was based around he used enemy mine as an example, and it was like whatever is happening now. So like
Yes.
enemy mine was about racism, but it was always just like what you're saying is like it's always reminded me Farger's Law of Science Fiction. It's always happening now. We
And there's
display
always,
it in various ways,
yeah, and
but
not to make it more complicated, but some of this stuff, no one is consciously aware of what they're doing. And then we see it afterwards and go, oh, that's totally about World War II. But like, no, nobody involved with the production or the book saw it until it was examined. And then once you see it, you can't not unsee it, right? Of course, this is about Vietnam, right? That kind of thing. So, all right. So, think about that as you're crafting your work going forward. I think we're going to be, and then there was wanting this all night tonight. We've gone long. So this was the excellent conversation. I
Well
hope
done, everybody.
the
Excellent.
yeah, it's the minute I started reading this, I go, oh, this could be a really interesting conversation, and it
Yep.
really, really was. So, and now we got a puppet. So,
Do we know what we're
we
doing
should do.
next?
We don't have anything lined up.
All right.
Here's what I would recommend. We have to do something light,
Okay.
and not crime. We've done a lot of crime, and to the point we're now examining how they all connect with each other.
I
So, let's pick out something. I would like to pick out something, though we've
well,
been pretty good about that. I think we've benefited a lot from not doing books that a lot of other that have been overly examined by
agreed.
other
Well,
organizations and things like that. So
weird
I have a
weird
list of
thought.
ideas.
Weird thought.
Yeah.
And you guys might think I'm
But it's
nuts,
got to be in
but
print too. That was the other thing too.
it's got to be in
Like,
print. It can't be
well,
digital.
yeah, it's not fair. Like someone who can't, like, I would love to do Howard Chaykin's The Shadow. The minute you mentioned
Oh,
it, like, I would love to do that. It's not in print. It would
well,
be,
but it is available digitally.
is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Oh,
All right. Well,
absolutely, it is. Well, what I was
go
going
ahead.
to
What did you have?
suggest.
What did you have?
Well, and I know this is nuts, but there was this one, and I don't know how many of them there are, but I know there was a collection of Archie stories that are horror. I know exactly, and
Oh
it's
no,
light.
those are
But has everyone ever read? There's that one great one where they go to the haunted house and there's this teddy bear that is possessed. And Carrie, I don't know if you've ever read this, and if you haven't, you should, being a horror fan. But
Yeah.
it was I mean, because it's an Archie story, and it was made in the 70s or
Isn't
the
it life?
60s.
The 70s. This isn't the
Yeah,
modern stuff. This
yeah,
is
no,
not
that's.
Franco Francavilla.
I'd be okay with the modern stuff too. But that's what I find interesting is, and I know that they've collected it in the past. I'm gonna track it down.
Yeah, I don't even know
Well,
what you're talking about. Yeah.
you know that Eric Burnham is doing Archie versus Army of Darkness.
Sure.
Yeah, we have him on Tuesday, but
that's great.
Yeah, Archie has a lot of horror crossovers, and they're all fun ones.
Yes,
like they're
Archie
super
versus
fun.
Predator was somehow really,
Of
really
course,
good.
absolutely. Alex DeCampi, I think, did that one. Yeah, no,
Alex
and all the
DeCampi?
zombie Archie stuff, sure. But
Oh,
that's
I
what
would
I'm
love
saying.
to do. Do you want to put together like a collection, maybe, of Archie versus horror
There's
books? So it's
lots of
like,
Archie on Hoopla.
That's
yeah.
true too. Yeah, I
So
mean,
I
it's not
thought this
maybe
was
like
a relatively
single pack,
new phenomena. I thought this was like
No.
in the Franco Francavilla life. Is it Life After Archie or something?
there's a reason why Brubaker wants to retire and just write Jughead stories for his final years, which
It's
always
so
tells
funny.
me.
I have other friends our age that would happily do that for the rest of their lives. I have no emotional connection to
Well,
that.
is that something that you wouldn't want to do then? I mean, because
I've been offered it. I like it's just
well, I don't mean that. I mean
no
covering book
Archie in
club.
general.
For book
I've
club.
given other than Josie and the Pussycats, which I think was perfectly crafted into the film, which we know is a perfect film. There's no reason to examine further. It's perfect.
But Mr. Bendis, would you be willing to do a book club episode of multiple issues of Archie versus
Oh,
something
absolutely.
horror?
No, yeah, no. Particularly, I've not experienced this, and it's fun to have a lane I have no relationship to at all.
There you
That's
go.
very fun to me. Like this one, I had even had the preamble with "I don't know Darwin" is a weird thing to say, or "I know Kelly," and I read this before you is a weird thing to have to say before things. So I love to have experience.
All right, I'm going to hunt this down because I know there was when Alex Segura was still editing at Archie and involved at Archie and stuff. They put out a reprint collection, including this teddy bear story that I'm talking about. And I
Yeah,
mean,
and
I'm telling you,
Adam
little
Hughes just
Archie.
did a Betty and Veronica that was really good a few years ago.
Zdarsky did
Mark
Jughead.
Wade. Someone just pointed out Mark Wade's work on Archie.
Of course.
Like Chip did a lot of Archie. I mean, these people
Yes.
have a lot of
Matt
passion.
Rosenberg did
Yeah.
Archie versus the Ramones.
Sure.
Yeah,
and
that one
House
I'm
of the
not even
Monkeys.
jealous of. Just
Yeah.
anything versus the Ramones. Anyway, so all right, well let's think about it, but let's like line up the next few and
Yeah.
make sure they're like in contrast to each other, so we can have a more colorful conversation. And but I like some of the newer things that we've been talking about that haven't been talked to death. Like, we don't have to talk about Watchmen. It's been talked like
Of course.
that's been done. But
Yeah.
like Precious Metal or the Horizon Experiment or like any of the stuff that's come out. As someone mentioned, Matthew Rosenberg, Four Kids Walk into a Bank would be, but that's a crime book. So I know
We
I have
want to alternate.
to lean. So,
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously we want to do crime, but I don't mind the alternating like we did with Birds of Prey last time.
no,
So
I actually want to do more of the world building ones that like build a
fine with
world by page 6. You're like, oh, this is a universe. Like that's some of the stuff that really
I'm cool with
entices
that.
me because that's like a magic trick I never get over. All right, so let's everyone just throw stuff on the Discord and say what you're thinking of, and we'll
And
we'll
on
pick the ones that
Patreon, yes,
everyone
indeed.
finds a connection to. But again, on top of this being an excellent conversation, this is one that helped me a great deal in a future project. And once you find out what it is, we'll talk about it more. But it really was a grand help to me, and I feel very confident as I walk into a space I'm not usually confident in. So, all right, to be continued, everybody. Karia, we'll see you on your podcast. Tad, I'll see you on you're 22, right?
22 panels.
All
Mike
right,
can
so
get a hold of me.
All right, well,
Taki can get a hold of me.
done. It's a done deal. All right. Thanks, guys. This was awesome. All right, to be continued.
Well done, everybody. Thanks
All
a
right.
lot for playing.
Yeah.
Take care.
Hi, everybody.
See you later.